Om Namah Shivaya. Today we are diving into one of the most profound mysteries of humanity, one that has fascinated philosophers, scientists, and seekers for millennia. A mystery that touches the very core of who you are. So let's understand, what is consciousness? Think about it for a moment. Right now, you're watching this video, you're aware, you're thinking, you're experiencing. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, how is this even possible? How does the simple matter inside of your skull create this beautiful, vivid, continuous experience of you being you? Consider this now. Last night, many of you might have dreamed. And in that dream, you felt emotions as well. You saw colors as well. You experienced an entire world as well. But your brain was asleep. Your senses were offline. Yet, my friends, consciousness was still there, creating entire realities inside of your mind. Or just let's think about those moments of deep focus. When you're so absorbed in something that the rest of the world disappears, playing music, creating a painting, writing a poetry, reading something very beautiful, meditating, time dissolves, no? It's just you and the present moment what remains at that very time there. The sense of being here, fully alive, fully aware. My friends, that's consciousness. We all know that what consciousness is because we are conscious. Yet, paradoxically, it remains one of the science's greatest unsolved puzzles. Why? Because we are trying to solve it with wrong tools, looking in the wrong places. Now, let me be very, very clear. I'm not dismissing science out here at all. Science has given us an extraordinary insight about how the brain works. The neuroscience of consciousness is very, very fascinating as far as science is concerned. But the current scientific consensus tells us that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain. In other words, consciousness arises from complexity of neural networks. Billions of neurons firing in intricate patterns. It's a byproduct and a phenomena, something that emerges when matter reaches certain level of vibration and sophistication. Now, this viewpoint is called materialism, and it makes intuitive sense, correct? We know that damage to the brain affects consciousness. Brain injuries, strokes, Alzheimer's, they all impact how we experience awareness. We have brain scans showing activity when people are conscious versus unconscious. Evidence seems straightforward. Consciousness comes from the brain. But here is where it gets interesting. Here's the question that has troubled the scientific community for a long period of time. If consciousness is merely an emergent property of physical process, how does it emerge? What is the mechanism? How does the firing of neurons, which is fundamentally just an electrical, chemical, and biological activity, create the subjective felt experience of what it's to be you? Here is what philosophers and scientists call the hard problem of consciousness. And despite decades of neuroscientific research, despite billions and billions of dollars in funding, despite our most sophisticated brain imaging technology, we still don't have an answer. Again, because why? Because we are looking in the wrong place. We can map which brain regions activate when we see color red, but that doesn't explain why red feels the way it does to you. We can measure neural correlates of emotion, but that doesn't have to explain why sadness has particular ache inside of you. We can observe the brain, but we cannot explain the bridge between physical matter and a subjective experience. So, here is what I want to propose to you today. Ask yourself this question: is that all there is? Is consciousness really just a happy accident of our evolutionary complexity? Is your sense of being, that fundamental, undeniable fact that you are aware, merely a side effect of chemical reaction? Is the entire universe of your experience, your thoughts, your feelings, and your deepest intuitions just neurons firing? For centuries, Western science has operated from a very particular way of assumption that matter is fundamental, consciousness is derivative, that the physical world is primary and awareness is secondary. But what if, what if we've been looking at all this backwards? What if consciousness isn't produced by the brain, but expressed through it? What if awareness isn't an emergent property, but the very ground of existence itself? What if the most fundamental reality isn't matter, but consciousness is? Now, this isn't mysticism. This isn't wishful thinking. This is a philosophical position that has been rigorously developed, tasted, and refined over thousands of years in one of humanity's most sophisticated intellectual, philosophical traditions. And that tradition, my friends, is called Trika, or Trika Tantra, or Kashmir Shaivism. Let me take you beyond the limitation of the brain-centric view. Imagine that you're walking through a forest at sunset. Your brain is processing visual information, wavelengths of light hitting your retinas, being translated into neural signals, creating the appearance of colors. Your brain is processing sounds. Frequencies are reaching your ears, being converted into neural activity. Your brain is processing sensations, temperature, texture, the feeling of earth underneath your feet, everything at one go. Now, conventional neuroscience says all of this entire experience, the entire world you're perceiving is being created inside of your brain. Your brain is like a theater, and consciousness is the stage where this show is performed. But here's the radical question: who is watching the show? You see, there is something that's aware of these perceptions. There's something that knows the colors, knows the sounds, knows the sensations. There's something that witnesses all of it. And that's something. Can you locate it in the brain? Can you find it in any physical object? In Trika Tantra philosophy, an ancient and non-dualistic Indian philosophical system, or Kashmir Shaivism, has a radically different answer to this puzzle. Trika says that consciousness is not produced by the brain. Consciousness is the fundamental reality of all existence. In Trika philosophy, consciousness, called Chit in Sanskrit, is not a thing that brains generate. It's not an emergent property. It's not a byproduct of complexity. It is the very ground of existence. It is the fundamental, reductible reality from which all things emerge, all things arise. Your brain doesn't create consciousness. Your brain is consciousness appearing in a particular form. Your individual awareness is not separate from universal consciousness. It's consciousness expressing itself as individual perspective. Think about it this way. The ocean doesn't create waves. Rather, the ocean is appearing as waves. Remove the idea of the wave and what remains? The ocean. The wave never left the ocean. The ocean never became something other than itself. Similarly, consciousness never becomes something other than itself. It appears as brains, it appears as bodies, as the entire universe itself. But underlying it all, pervading it all this creation, at the very center of it all is consciousness itself. Now, this isn't a poetic metaphor, It's a precise philosophical assertion backed by a rigorous logic and centuries of contemplative investigation. The great Trika philosophers like Abhinav Gupta and Utpaladeva developed sophisticated arguments demonstrating that consciousness must be primary, that matter cannot be primary. Apparent separation between the observer and observed is fundamentally an illusion because they are all one consciousness. What is observed and who is the observer? Both of them. Here is why this matters actually, If consciousness is truly fundamental, then everything changes. If consciousness is primary, then it is not trapped inside of your skull. It's not limited to your individual brain. It is not produced by neurons. Your brain becomes an instrument. Your brain, it becomes an instrument, an extraordinary, sophisticated instrument through which universal consciousness knows itself, experiences itself, and manifests itself. This explains something that neuroscience has always struggled with. Why does consciousness seem to be unified? You don't experience yourself as billions of separate neural processes. No. It is one unified awareness. How can scattered, separate neurons create this unified field of awareness inside of you and outside of you? Because you are that unified awareness. The unity doesn't come from the neurons. The neurons are arising within consciousness.
Baba, I will pick it outside.
Okay, I'll come.
And look at this on my ball.
Wow, what is all that? Consciousness. And in Trika view, this is not a mystery. Experience is primary. Consciousness doesn't need to be explained as an emergent property because it's not emergent, it's fundamental. Here is something even more profound. If consciousness is the ground of reality, then you are not separate from it. That awareness right now inside of you, the very thing, hearing these words of mine, seeing me move my finger as well, the awareness of your breath, the sense of I am present in this body, that is consciousness. That is the fundamental reality. That's not metaphorical, that's literal. The question, what is consciousness, isn't an abstract philosophical puzzle. It's intimate, it's personal. It's asking, who am I? What am I? What's really happening right here, right now? How am I feeling it? And what is my reaction to it? Science tells us one story, Trika philosophy tells us another. But remember one thing, science only has theories. Theories can one day become laws, unchangeable laws. But till then, keep yourselves open. Experience this consciousness within yourself and experience it inwardly. Maybe the answer isn't something you find in a book or a video like this. Maybe, just maybe, you may find this answer in the depths of your own awareness itself that can be experienced via the 112 methodologies of Trikatantra's magnum opus known as Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Here's where your practice begins. Here's where your Trika begins. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shri Matraya Namah.